Good morning, everyone. My name is Tammy Sadler-Jones. I'm the City Administrator, and I'd like to call to order the License and Variance Board meeting for Wednesday, July 25th, 2018 at 10 o'clock a.m. Board members present, to my left is Roy Akery, the Fire Chief. To his left is Eric Randall, the City Engineer. Elsa Thompson will be taking the official meeting minutes, and she's the Assistant Administrative Services Coordinator. First item is a public hearing, variance request V18052, allow additional accessory structure and use to construct a swimming pool and cabana, land lot 411, 0.93 acres, 3565 Lake Drive. Tracy Gudiano is the applicant. Is the applicant present? Okay. Yeah.
Joey Stobbs, Planner 2, Community Development. Spoke with the contractor yesterday, and he was going to have the homeowner come, but
All right.
apparently they're not here.
Well, we can table it indefinitely. Okay. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion that for V18-52, the variance request to allow additional accessory structure and use to construct a swimming pool and cabana, land lot 411, 0.93 acres, 3565 Lake Drive, Tracy Gaudiano, applicant, that this be tabled indefinitely pending the arrival of pending the attendance of the applicant.
Pardon me, are you Tracy? Okay, all right.
I second the motion to table.
It's been motioned and properly second that we table variance request V18052. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item is a public hearing, variance request V18053, allow exemption of circular drive requirement for a daycare facility, land lot 634, 1.58 acres, 1755 Roswell Street, Precious Gems Learning Academy. Ashley Hill is the applicant. Is Ms. Hill here? Okay, step to the podium, please. Yes, that's fine. And for the record, can you state your name?
Ashley Hill.
And Earl Hill.
Okay. All right. Can you tell us about your variance request, please?
Okay, we are putting in the application for the variance based on our feeling that the need for the turnaround for our particular venue or facility is not needed. There's adequate parking, over 50 parking spaces throughout that parking lot, and we feel that, I guess, the need for the the need for the turnaround would possibly cause more of a disturbance to the surrounding area, needing construction and permits and possibly messing with traffic on that street, Roswell Street, since it would have to come out from the street. We have also spoken with the fire marshal and the members of the city council as well, or excuse me, not city council, members of the community development department to see if other alternatives could be used based on what we currently have set up there.
And this was recommended to submit the variance. Also, right from the start, the state that licenses us to be a child care requires each parent to come into the facility to check in and check out their children. So we wouldn't have anybody using a drive to just drop their children off.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Well, at this time, we'll have Joey Stobbs from Community Development make comments, and you guys can just have a seat on the front row.
Applicants requesting a variance at 1755 Roswell Street to allow exemption for circular drive requirement for daycare facility. This is an existing church at the subject property that the applicant will co-occupy part of this building for daycare. Community Development, Fire Marshal's Office, and Public Works have met with the applicant, reviewed the property, and they recommended certain conditions that the applicant take, that they would be willing to support the exemption. Basically, those requirements are that they apply for a variance for this exemption for circular drive, that the first 10 parking spaces closest to Roswell Street be coned for staff parking only, with no drop-off parking allowed. Within the first 30 to 45 days of opening the business, lines will be striped in the parking lot to delineate the travel lanes. The applicant will meet with fire marshal to discuss the striping scheme. Prior to striping, cones will be placed to delineate the travel lanes. There will be a turnaround at the back of the parking lot, and the 3 parallel parking spots will be situated next to the ADA parking, will be striped to allow for wider travel lane. The applicant has submitted a letter of intent agreeing to those conditions, and based on the development of this property and the constraints on it, and also because that Bradford at the start is requiring a sign in and sign out of each parent for each child, we feel the exemption is appropriate. So we recommended approval with the one condition, that approval of the requested variance shall be conditioned upon substantial compliance with the letter of intent submitted with the variance application.
Any questions for the staff? Okay. And for the applicant, Mr. and Ms. Hill, do you agree to the one condition as stated? Okay. Okay. And our fire chief has a question, so if you can come to the podium, please.
It's really just more of a clarification. You just heard Mr. Stobbs kind of read into the record some things to consider should this variance be approved. He talked about using the cones. You've got 30 days or so to get the striping done. You've got to meet with the fire marshal before that is actually done. But in the meantime, you'd use the cones during your hours of operations to both ensure staff parking in those first 10 and also everything that he read. So I'm assuming that those things that dealt with, should this be approved, you'll have to do this. You guys mentioned that you'd already been in touch with staff. Are you aware of those things?
Correct.
Today was not first exposure.
No, we
Right.
worked on this with them.
And you guys are more than willing to do all that and understand that those definitely will be conditions.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had.
All right. Any other questions?
I have no questions.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak regarding this issue, I ask that you please step to the podium at this time. Seeing no one, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
I'll motion to approve V18-053 to allow exemption of circular drive requirement for a daycare facility at land lot 634, 1.58 acres, 1755 Roswell Street, Precious Gems Learning Academy, with Ashley Hill as the applicant, with the stipulations and conditions as read into the record by staff.
I second the motion.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve variance request V18053. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Next item is a public hearing, variance request V18054, allow 6-foot wooden privacy fence in front yard along Midland Street, land lot 451, 0.31 acres, 1031 McClendon Avenue. John Dixon is the applicant. Is Mr. Dixon present? Yes, please. And for the record, can you please state your name?
John Hampton Dixon,
Okay.
and what do you need to know?
If you can tell us about your variance request, please.
I would guess that he would know more about it than me, because we put the fence up and halfway up, and it's not a front yard, it's in the backyard. And I have had my surveyor surveyed the property, and I can put a house on this property, but I chose to put a fence instead of a house, which would cover up the whole backyard, you know. And from that, I don't know what to do from there, you know, whether finish your fence, tear it down, or what.
Okay. Well, at this time, we'll have Joey Stobbs make comments unless either of you have comments to make.
This is my
I
granddaughter.
have pictures as well to show the backyard that looks the exact same as what our neighbors have done.
Okay.
You guys need to see that.
Okay. All right.
Everything you need.
Okay. Joey Stobbs from Community Development.
Applicants requesting a variance at 1031 McClendon Avenue to allow a 6-foot wooden privacy fence in the front yard along Medlin Street. The subject property has, it faces McClendon Avenue, but the backyard has road frontage along Medlin Street. Based on our ordinance, any yard that is adjacent to a road is a front yard. But basically, this is the back of the house along Medlin Street. There's a fence partially installed that goes along Medlin Street, and that therefore they need a variance to allow a 6-foot wooden privacy fence. If it was a 4-foot fence, it would be allowed by code, but for security and safety purposes, they're requesting a 6-foot fence. The adjacent property to the west has a fence already installed that's 6 feet, and they are continuing that the plane of the existing fence. There's an adjacent property to the east that faces Medlin Street that contacted us. They had concerns about site visibility from leaving their driveway. Myself and the city engineer's office have gone out there and done an inspection. We don't think there's any obstruction of view from the current placement of the fence due to the grade changes and the curvature of Medlin. We've recommended approval of the fence. We think there should be no adverse impact on adjacent properties. We're recommending 2 conditions. One, that the fence be installed to allow runoff to flow unimpeded to the inlet on Medlin Street. We just don't want the water to be impacted so that it can't flow into the inlet. Otherwise, it'll pull up in their backyard. And then 2, a row of evergreen shrubs no taller than 4 feet be planted in front of the fence on Medlin Street. Basically because the nice side of the fence is facing the backyard instead of facing Medlin Street.
Any questions for the applicant?
I just had one. Joey, so the first condition that you talked about that dealt with runoff, I get that, you know, the way the topography of the ground, but so would the concern, just kind of having that as a statement, isn't that easily accomplished just by the fence not actually touching the ground, which I think is a common practice anyway?
Yes, sir.
I mean, the fence would literally have to touch or go into the ground to kind of dam that runoff, right? So
Yes,
just
sir.
so that first condition there would just to have some verbiage in here to say, well, just, you know, don't create a dam. You know, I'm pretty sure, I'm not a fence builder, but I think that they don't put the wood touching the ground anyway. I think it's an inch or so off.
If I can interject a comment. I appreciate the fact that that is stipulated, because frequently when people build fences to contain dogs, they do want it running all the way down to the ground, and that would impede. So just making sure that there's a provision that the water can leave the site, get into the city system, because you have several lots draining through this backyard to get to the city's infrastructure. And it sounds practical. Hey, we would do that anyway, but I appreciate that stipulation is there.
And the second stipulation, I really just, I've got a little bit of an issue with it, and it was really more comments and questions for the applicant, if that's okay,
That's fine,
Madam
yes.
Chair. So you guys heard Mr. Stobbs read into record the second requirement that dealt with shrubs.
Yes,
I think that the intent behind that, and we've done that a couple other times. I realize, Mr. Dixon, this is a weird thing because this is the backyard of the property. Right. But because, and this is a regular occurrence for this board, because that property is actually faced by two streets. Technically, from the city's ordinance perspective, you have two front yards. I know it's confusing, doesn't make sense, but that's why we're here. So I think that second stipulation was really there to kind of to really address, I guess, aesthetics. I mean, a couple issues I have. The property next to you that has the 6-foot fence doesn't have, the row of bushes. But the biggest issue that I have with that is that the only way that you guys could plant bushes on the back side of that fence would be to put it in the city right-of-way. And therefore, if the bushes, at some point in the future, what's in the city right-of-way becomes the city's obligation to maintain and things like that. And really, I wanted to just ask if you guys would be willing, when you put the fence boards up, in lieu of having to have a requirement to plant bushes, instead of that, would you be willing to put the fence boards on the outside of the fence versus the inside of the fence?
So you're saying put the good side of the fence on
Right,
the
I think
outside.
Joey's referred to that as the good side of the
Right.
fence,
I think the only problem with doing that now is that the fence is already halfway put up the other side. I can show you
Okay,
pictures
so the
of
picture
it.
I'm looking at, there are two panels where the fence boards are up.
May I approach and show you what I have?
Sure.
Well, I would like to say that I would not be in favor of changing the boards. I've got too much money invested in it already, and I didn't know I was gonna go through this.
This is the neighbor who faces.
Right, so
the
we've got
McCluskey
pictures too, just
Yeah.
the pictures we have,
So it's already put up.
let's see, those two.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one that we have.
yeah, so this is what's already been done, when we got the variance to stop. So then we haven't done anything since then. So we just had to finish this row. So we've done a lot with putting in all these sections this way. And the reason we did that, and we've asked the neighbors, and they all signed off on the variance paperwork. They said they had no problem with it, is because their fences, when we moved in, was already put up each way. So we were like, well, we'll just keep it where it looks seamless, So that was our plan. So if we could, we would like to keep the fence and continue it this way. I've been personally going out there and weed eating and mowing on the city property just to keep it looking nice.
I think for the sake of the record, any other comments that you have needs to be in the microphone so it can be officially recorded. Thank you.
So
For the record, can you state your name?
I'm Chris Andervick.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
He's the one that's gonna live there.
Okay.
Yeah, the
All right.
tenants. So, being that the fence on that side of Medlin is about 3/4 done, a lot of time, money invested in it already, we'd like to continue it the direction it's going. Again, I've been trying to upkeep that side of the fence anyways to keep the neighborhood happy. Mr. Dixon and my wife has put a lot of work into this home at Medlin Street, trying to improve the whole neighborhood. And we're gonna obviously landscape it nice. I don't know if y'all have seen the front, but we've done a lot of work. We're gonna do the same to the back once we get the fence up, so we don't have, a little more security, privacy and whatnot. But yeah, I haven't seen the city come out and do anything on the other side of the fence, on their side of the property. I've been going out there weed whacking, mowing, trying to keep it nice. Our main priority is privacy and security, but also to keep the property nice inside and outside of the fence.
Is part of your plan to have a gate on the Medlin side?
Yes, sir.
So you'll have access to there?
Yes, sir.
Driveway there I've owned it for 30 years.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Driveway there for 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we tore the driveway out during construction, but there is that slab where the carport used to be in the back. And there's still that little part of where on Medlin where the driveway used to be. So, we're not sure 100% what we're gonna do with it just yet, but we're gonna put a gate in there just in case.
And as Chief Acree mentioned, one of my concerns is ongoing maintenance.
Yes, sir.
And I will say, I appreciate your taking care of, quote unquote, the city's property.
Yes, sir.
It is the frontage, and that's one of the, I guess you'd call it unwritten expectations. We like to have citizens maintain that portion of the right-of-way, that beauty strip, as we call it, between the sidewalk and the curb and that frontage. because I know our city crews, and people take a whole lot more ownership of it than the city crews do.
Yes.
You do it to a better standard than our crews do, just for the sake of budgetary reasons. I would be good with this if it, let me ask Joey Stobbs, would you step back up? So is the stipulation for the evergreen shrubs to accommodate a request by the neighbor across the street, or is this kind of preemptive for just overall in general because of the good side, bad side of the fence?
This basically evolved from the adjacent property on Medlin, their comment
So the adjacent property next door or across the street?
next door.
Okay. I don't like it either.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I think that, that this board is going to strike the condition number 2 that deals with the requirement for evergreen shrubs no taller than 4 feet as read into record by Mr. Stobbs, because of the concerns already stated. I appreciate as well that you're going to maintain it and all that stuff.
I do too.
My concern is just a long-term, suppose you guys didn't live there 15 years from now and somebody did not maintain those, and then we have to come in because it's right away and fix a water pipe or something like that, that kind of thing. That in addition to, it would be the only required row of evergreen shrubs, and it's not required anywhere else. I've got too much heartburn with that, and I'm going to request that we just strike that from the required conditions, which would leave the one and only number 1 as read in, the fence shall be installed to allow runoff to flow unimpeded.
Mr. Dixon, do you accept the one condition as stated?
Repeat that, please.
That the fence be installed to allow runoff to allow unimpeded to the inlet on Midland Street.
If you can give me the lot, how y'all want it done, where it'd be, the city would.
Eric, you want to kind of explain to him how?
I would just be looking for a gap at the bottom of the fence, 6 or 8 inches.
Have you been out there to look at it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, y'all carried out there a block and covered it up, there's about that much room is left from there to the top of the catch basin. So there's no way for no water to run in there, but whatever y'all want to do, that's what we'll do.
And there's flexibility in the way this stipulation is written, so it's more of a performance rather than a specification. The answer is either I or my assistant will be out there. We can meet with you at a mutually agreeable time and say, here's what makes sense. Again, the only intent is to make sure, for your benefit as well as for the communities, that water doesn't pool in your backyard.
Understand.
And the comment is that I frequently see people put fences in all the way to the ground because they got a dog. And if you leave a gap, that's where the dog's going to dig. So recognizing that is an accommodation. I'm just looking for the intent. Please.
So with the water runoff with the fence, you just basically don't want it touching the ground, just like all the other fences. You just need just a little gap to run off. We brought in a lot of dirt and stuff to make sure to accommodate the neighbors' runoff and ours to run it back, buried piping, so the water will run off towards those 2 drainages in the back. But just so Mr. Dixon and I, my wife, are clear, that fence going along the back, I understand the concern is the water runoff. You don't want it to stop at the fence and pull up. You want it to go through.
Exactly right.
So with the fence going down, exactly how far off the ground are you guys requiring? Because we do have a dog, we do want privacy, so we don't want a 6-inch gap because no one else, it would look funny. But just something.
If I can offer, let's coordinate this in the field.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think that compromises the variance.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Can
yeah.
you talk to Eric after the meeting is over?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
all right.
Yes. Okay.
We can
thank you.
coordinate that, and I don't want this to be an undue burden.
Okay. Thank you.
Just making sure that it is a drainage way that runs through there, and it's not uncommon throughout our community
Sure.
to have exactly this, where 50, 60 years ago, water drained through yards. It wasn't really thought about. That is not acceptable by today's standards.
Right, understood. Yes,
So-
sir. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So, and Mr. Dixon, just back for the sake of clarity, there were two conditions. The second one was we're going to require some shrubs, and we have eliminated that second condition and taken it out. Is that okay?
Fine, yeah.
All right.
Let's see.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
I ain't got nothing to say. I just was thinking out loud.
Okay. This is a public hearing. If anyone else would like to speak regarding this issue, I ask that you please step to the podium at this time. Seeing no one, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve variance application V18-054 to allow a 6-foot wooden privacy fence in the front yard along Medlin Street, land lot 451, 0.31 acres at 1031 McClendon Ave. John Dixon, the applicant, modifying staff recommendations to eliminate the second stipulation. Only the first stipulation would be included.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve variance request V18054. All in favor, please vote. All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Next item is approval of the July 11th, 2018 License and Variance Board meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the July 11, 2018 License Variance Board meeting minutes.
I second.
It's been motioned and properly second that we approve the July 11th, 2018 License and Variance Board meeting minutes. All in favor, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to declare this meeting adjourned at 10:27 a.m. Thank you.